Yeah, thanks a lot for joining. It's exactly on the second, I made sure of that. We're in the Tech Theater, 9:10. Thanks a lot for your early attendance. The morning session until the first break is solely under the topic of Danube, and we will start a little bit more technically oriented, of course, with the underlying kind of conceptual, architectural, standard-related assumptions on that. Vincent will then continue with a little bit about ontologies, also from a broader perspective, because I don't know, some of you might have witnessed that we have prepared the ultimate pangalactic glossary. You know, we have the Data Space Support Center glossary. We have Gaia-X glossary, that was actually first. We have Simple, we have Senelec JTC 25 Working Group 2 on data spaces, glossary. We have ISO IEC Draft International Standard 2151 in final draft stage, another glossary. And the key, and they are all a little bit alike, but also different. This is what Vincent is going to explain, because following a little bit our universal, it's a very grandeur mission of uniting all of them. Vincent will be the one who is trying to consolidate all of them. That's the first task. That's comparably easy. The second one is to preach that to the outside world and get it accepted. And then we will have myself and actually Delphine going in much more detail how Danube really works on the code level. Do you show code as well? Perhaps, if that all depends on the audience. Yeah. Can I have the first presentation, please? Or maybe I simply should click. Yeah. I'm always confused by the slides, because there is nothing on the slide telling me what is the second slide. Is that the presentation? Is that the agenda? Is that the finish of the event? So I will do a little bit of generic introduction, and then I will hand over to Yassir, because as tech lead he knows much more of the details. And I only, how should I say, my job basically is to make sure that what the team is implementing actually somehow corresponds to what Roland, our members, the board of directors, the projects kind of expect from that. So if something does not match, it's my fault. If it works, it's Yassir and the team. So this is credit where it's due. And I will not go into those details. This is just if you recap the presentation and want to have a brief overview of what were the design ideas behind Danube. And we started thinking on that kind of May. I will tell you that interactively, but if you want to have a one-pager, then that's the first page. The first element, and it's a little bit different from the plenary I gave. Initially, everyone, of course, you know that we start with a very high-level requirements in the form of the compliance documents. And the idea was that somehow we have to implement that into code. And you remember that in our trust framework we have the technology agnostic rules. So this is PDF. This is written text, written criteria like a law book. And then we have somehow the rule agnostic technology implementation here. But of course, in Loa and in Tagus, there is no rules agnostic implementation. Or have you seen that? Tagus compliance engine, Loa compliance is a monolithic software. Of course, one package plus the registry, I totally get it. But essentially, it's a monolithic implementation where the rules agnostic technical compatibility part is right from the start built into the compliance engine, which made sense at that point in time. I would have done the same. So monolithic architectures are not bad in every situation. Good for Tagus, good for Loa. And then we had the people of the PRC, rightfully in my mind, that was the best decision ever. Talk about more Gaia-X determined and Gaia-X value following, European value following extensions. So where the board of directors would even check the rules. We are still at the level of the technology agnostic rule book of an ecosystem of a data space. This is where the rules are described. How do I become participant? And if you want to be participant at Catena-X, you need legal proof, etc. And you need a business partner number in an SAP system. That is perfectly fine for Catena-X because everything is running on system. For 1 million other ecosystems, that's completely unthinkable, and this makes all the ecosystems a little bit incompatible, and the little bit extra work for Catena-X, and if we approve that, would be an extension. But then people at the PRC, which was a very good kind of reflection, also get to know by talking actually to other projects, the Japanese, that they are, while they in principle work at the same standards of trust, they do not want to have a purely European organization where they have no representation at the Board of Governance determining their trust anchors. They would not never try, I mean, they would never just, they will never get an EIDAS business identity. Never ever. They will use a Japanese identity provider. And they will have Japanese rules, and they will not undersign, we follow European rules, because the Japanese also by history, they follow Japanese rules. And the Korean will also follow maybe Southeast Asia rules, but not strictly European. Why would you do that if you are a sovereign state? So the realization was that we will have ecosystems which will bring their own set of rules. And this is why it's gray. This has nothing to do with the Gaia-X values, rules, etc. It's just for ecosystems. And we want to allow that because it's unthinkable that the whole world will adopt a single compliance document done by very engaged members at the Gaia-X Association. That never works. The IRA Foundation tried to do that a couple of years ago, still try to do that, and look where they are. There is zero adoption. So this is at the top level. That is the state of the requirements, and then we are also talking on the technical side a little bit with projects, because I did not want to develop that or have the team develop it without any guidance from anyone who does not come from outside Gaia-X, because if you live in a bubble, that's not going to work really. So the basic idea was really to split whatever we have implemented in Danube, the rules part of Danube, and hidden secretly or implemented not explicitly the technology compatibility, to separate, to split it out in a core engine. This is how we called the beast. This is just ensuring technical compatibility. So it does not know any rules. And then this would implement and also implement the same technical compatibility as LOA. So the Danube architecture on the technical on the standards level, on the interface level is compatible, on the registry level is compatible. However, there is no such thing as a Danube compliance. And people say, Danube is incompatible with LOA. No, there is nothing. Danube is not at that level. Danube is not at the rules level, just at compliance. But that, of course, just technical compliance is not enough, because we want to allow somehow that the ecosystems can execute their rules engine. So this, we dubbed that, that was a bring your own rule extension mechanism or architecture. I will tell you how that really works. Of course, the basic paradigm, the API pattern of how you get a credential of a clearinghouse, and that need not be a Gaia-X digital clearinghouse. We have to be careful, I have to be careful, because in my world you have Gaia-X digital clearinghouses which are certified or have a clearinghouse contract with Roland and the team, but maybe the Japanese will have a Japanese kind of branded clearinghouse with the same technical standards, the same pattern. This is a post, you all know that this is a post, and then you get out the VC from the clearinghouse, but maybe a different clearinghouse and different clearinghouse contracts. The PRC has not decided whether that is allowable or not, but our technical architecture in Danube does not care, honestly. Then this is the way how we managed kind of requirements that were not known at the time and still are not known. Then we make an architecture which is able to absorb that variation points. And this is behind that. So we have a core engine, kind of a service. Yassir will go into much more detail with the C4 architecture. And somehow, and that was the initial idea, you plug in extensions, which would be like local microservices in a Kubernetes deployment, implementing, for instance, our own LOA, Actually, we did not do that later on because we have a separate mechanism. Or, and this is what Delphine will show you, that we implemented a Japanese or actually international region identity extension just to play around. And this is needed for SPS next week, actually. So we know how the ontology looks like, what they want, and how a credential basically looks like. This is running in the same context as the core engine. The core engine just kind of acts as a dispatcher in that way. I will have more details, and we will pack that into a single deployable instance of code, because the clearinghouses, we ask them, do you rather want to have a library and include that somewhere in your stack, or microservices, deployable components, and there was no exception, only components, or at least components first, let's say. And then we also know that we will have different ecosystems bringing their own rules. Yeah, please, we have no actual working on SCSN. So with this smart connected supply network, this is just an example how far, to what extent we make the architecture extensible. So even if you have a complete existing ecosystem, the idea is, and we have another case in the making with iShare, that the Danube architecture should be able to absorb, and not absorb, complement any other ecosystem rulebook or compliance engine, including, and that was, of course, a wish by many ecosystems, to allow different DID methods. Right now we only support out-of-the-box DID web, but if, for instance, Pontus X wants to support and base its identity on DID Ocean protocol, they are fine. DID IOTA, DID, even anonymous identifiers would be okay, DID key, why not? But the ecosystem, this is why it's gray, the ecosystem has to provide the code. There is no way that the small Gaia-X lab team is able to develop, I don't know, without costs, all the extensions. And then we have other ecosystems, like iShare, who have very large compliance engines. Actually, it's more a compliance ecosystem itself with different servers, different services, and there is no way that they will rewrite their code just to fit into our core engine. The first version of the core engine. So we had the idea of then separating those two ways of extension into a local one and in something remote. I have more details later on. I will show that on the next slide, how we have segmented the core engine for actually because we are lazy and want to reuse code. Yeah, we are sharing the PowerPoint afterwards in any case. And even if you want to reuse the PowerPoint slides, because we are for I don't know, for whatever reasons, only sharing the PDF, just give me a mail or we post it in the OSS call. Because if you want to reuse the things, we are happy to share the slides, really. If you can only also rebrand it, because that's the best thing what can happen to Gaia-X, that you take literally our ideas and build them into your presentations. Yeah, then we have the registries. In the first iteration, the registries are not touched. An ecosystem may have its own registry or not, we don't care. We were a little bit lazy. I was a little bit lazy thinking of a dispatcher. I will tell that in the next slide. The idea initially was very just to have a helper registry, like for the core engine, for some housekeeping, for parking some information. But with a shared trust use case, we invented actually the concept of ecosystem trust profiles, how cross ecosystem trust can be enabled. No one has done that before, actually, to the best of my knowledge. If you know another implementation where you have such a meta registry working at all together with compliance, please tell me. I'm happy to correct that statement of mine, but I never ran across that. So I'll go into a little bit more detail. The core engine, in essence, consists of a dispatcher, because we have the different extensions here. It's a very old pattern. Many of you would, of course, know, or a gateway, however you called it. And then we separated out from the old Loire compliance engine, we separated out all the basic functions, which are kind of signing, VC jot signing, and all that kind of cryptography, even the DID web authentication mechanisms, like a library. So if we have ecosystems who want, if we have many ecosystems who do not want to maintain their own DIT ocean protocol or whatever other DIT EPSI, DIT iShare, then we could think of putting that into the basic functions. And then the idea was to add or to allow the addition of extensions in the form of IMIX credentials, of microservices. And then maybe we have some registries. And then we have the Loire compliance engine. Contrary to what I have told in the plenary, because that's too complicated, Loire is not built into the core engine. So the clearinghouses can reuse the existing installation of Loire. So they do not have to deploy anything in Loire. And the only thing we need to make the Gaia-X compliance dispatcher aware of, and we call that proxy, which is of course not a very slim piece of code, that for any label credential request which comes in, because this is kind of the key how to do, for any label level request, you simply call the compliance engine, the existing Loire compliance engine, and get it back. And the same will happen, I think, I don't remember the presentation there, yeah. And the same will happen for the iShare participant credential, for instance. So thereby we can plug in, or clearinghouses can plug in any even very complicated external system. But this is the piece continuously checking technical compatibility. Because technical compatibility, yes, you can evaluate it once, but if you do it like that, you always, and you trust our software, obviously, then you can always maintain technical compatibility. So that's, I think, yeah, looking at the time, I won't go into the details, and I will rather hand over to Yassir. If you have any question, I can come back to that. You can read the text about versioning, please.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I'll just really go straight ahead and really show you the same, so what Christoph presented, but just the technical part. But first of all, let's start, like before going to the future, let's start with the past. And so here we have just a quick reminder of taggers and the components that are deployed on the clearinghouse. So we have the compliance engine, the registration number notary, and the registry. And this is just kind of to show you kind of which specifications of Gaia-X deliverables are used with each component, because I think that will be definitely relevant for the Danube part. So again, you can see here that, for example, the architecture document is used for all the components, the compliance as well, and so on. Yeah, the ICAM as well for the credentials, of course, and yeah. And if you go to the next part, it's exactly the same thing, but with the Loire version. So now we have again the three components, the compliance engine, so exactly the same components as Tagus, the compliance, the registration number notary, and the registry. And again, a quick reminder, because I think some of you might have seen in the presentation yesterday the level 2 and 3 certification. So that's another notary, to not be confused with this one, the registration notary. So this one is used for the legal entity identifier notary, but the one like yesterday, just again, as a reminder, is used for the certifications such as Second Cloud, C5, or ISO, or so on. And again, it's really the same mapping here with the compliance document on all the components, ICAM architecture document, just next versions of them. So for Loire, like how, so Christoph already mentioned it, but I think it's very important to know that for Loire, indeed, we had the compliance. So it starts from the compliance document, then just a quick, like more technical mapping, and then the code implementation that really goes into the Loire version. But again, this is not the point of the presentation, but just to show you that this will not be the case for Danube. Again, just a reminder, I think some people that were maybe not familiar with already the current Loire version, so just as a reminder. And then, so what we have is that, again, we're going to have one compliance to rule them all, one compliance to find them, and then one compliance to bring them all, and then the interoperability bind them. We're going to think choose many words here: interoperability, technical compatibility, and so on. So I guess that's one of like thing that to sum up Danube, kind of. So go next. And this is a very kind of simple C4 model, a bit more details on what Christoph presented, but this is really just a kind of container level for the C4. So we just have the kind of three components, so the Gaia-X meta registry, the compliance dispatcher, and the basic functions. And then you have the extension, which can be either external or not so external here. But again, that's what Christoph mentioned when he mentioned a local or remote extension. And then you can, as you can see, so the client, really the dispatcher is at the center kind of the Gaia-X Danube, linking as well the Gaia-X meta registry and the basic functions. But I think maybe a next part with the compliance dispatcher will be a bit easier to understand. And really to start just with the basic functions. So again, this is just a way to have one kind of toolbox to help people to start off. So just to lower the barrier of entry for newcomers. I think for already existing big ecosystems, they already probably have all those tools, all the necessary things to start off. But this is really just for people just discovering the ecosystem, starting out. So it will be a really nice way, an easy way to use those functions. And of course, it can either be used directly or extended. And I think the extended, that's very important because we really want to focus on the open to contributions and really open to contributions and community driven. So we really want a really nice exchange and contributions for the community for anything that they deem that's necessary or useful for kind of bigger either ecosystems that we can just contribute and add that to the basic functions. And of course, it can also work as a sandbox when we're implementing the latest technical standards and just kind of trying them out and testing things. So currently for the basic functions that's what we have, and as you can see, there's upcoming features that will be they're coming soon. And so the first part is we have the signature. So the first thing is that you can just simply verify any VC JOT. That's the same one that's used for Loire and Danube. And also you can verify, I think it was mentioned on a presentation yesterday by Stefan Dooms on for example, to verify the compliance credential. So there's that function as well. So here it's in the ontology, it's the label credential, so the Gaia-X label credential for the compliance. So that's really the credential, it's the output of the compliance, the current, for example, Loire compliance. But it can also be used with extensions because of course it's free to use on the ontology and so on. And then we have the DID part, just a really simple resolver, like a DID web. And again, this is a DID web, just all of the DID functions are really for the did web method. But again, it's really extensible. It's really the goal is really to add more functions and really to contribute kind of like a community to all this, to these functions. There's a validation, and also they can this is optional. It can either verify or not if you want that the certificate that's in the DID, so it's an attribute in the verification method of the X5C or X5U certificate. You can be able to check if it's trusted or not by the Gaia-X. So the trust anchors, so it should be in either EVSSL or ADAS for the production environment. And then we have the shackle as well, so some shackle functions. So you can, for example, use to validate some kind of credentials using Gaia-X shackle shapes, ontology, or any kind of any other shackle shapes or any other ontology that you want to use. It's also possible to do that. And again, if you have already proposals or ideas for this, feel free to propose them just after the presentation. And then also very quickly to the Gaia-X meta registry, because I believe there will be more details in next presentation. So really just now, because I mentioned this, so I have to kind of at least tell you something about that. So it's really based on the kind of FAIR, so findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And you have here just a kind of quick peek of the ontology for the meta registry. So we have the ecosystem, which have one or more ecosystem trust scope, which itself can find here, have one or more trust service providers. And then again, each ecosystem trust provider have also its own kind of attributes. And of course, it's open source and open to contributions, because that's kind of the gateway and the entrance for the Danube extensions parts. And of course, it's just transparent and cross-ecosystem. Of course, by definition, because that's kind of the goal and kind of the point. So the compliance dispatcher, and like I said earlier, it's really the center kind of the Danube part. So as you can see here, you can have like a user request that first of all goes through the compliance dispatcher, and then the second part, you just can query the meta registry to get some kind of metadata on the extensions, for example. So it can be either done at the request time or previous to that, and then just return the data from the meta registry. And then afterwards, it can be just dispatch or route to the right kind of extension. So here it can be, so again, it's external because, like, of course, it's optional, but to go back to the concepts of earlier, it can be like local or a remote extension. And of course, this extension, so any extension is free to use. Of course, it's not mandatory. It's free to use the basic functions. So really the function that we just seen before. So, So just, for example, for the DID signature or the shackle. And then, after all, at the end, so the extension will just return the compliance results. And that will be afterwards, of course, returned by the dispatcher to the user. And also something that was mentioned, but again, it's very important, I think, to emphasize on that, is the technical part. So Danube is, of course, retrocompatible with Loire, as you can see, both using VCJOT, VC Data Model 2, Shackle, so on. You have OpenID that will be coming soon, integration. And as you can see also for the basic functions, VCJOT, VC Data Model 2 again, and really the same thing also for the meta registry with the ontology. Still using the LinkML from the service characteristic working group, and so on. Yeah, sorry for the spelling mistake. I think I've catched that this morning, but I guess it was a bit too late to change it. So here, yeah, it's for the Danube components. As you can see, compared to earlier, there's a bit of this part, so the extension part, with some examples. So we have for example, the Loire. And as you can see, the compliance document from earlier is right here. But again, there's no compliance document up top. So yeah, and for this part, I guess there'll be more detail on the next presentation from Delphine and Christoph. And for the top part, again, you can see the three components that we've seen before, the meta registry, the compliance dispatcher, and the basic functions. And again, you can see that, for example, for the ICAM, so the credential formats is on the basic functions and the dispatcher. And we have one new thing here is that if you were here in the last session yesterday, so the PRC, geography, and domain extension, so that's was integrated. So that's kind of the specification behind the Danube and the dispatcher. And that's it. Thank you. I don't know if there's any questions. Otherwise, I think we have a dedicated Q&A session specifically for Danube. So either you have a question now, or if you want to take some time and see the next presentations, and there'll be some time for that. Okay. Otherwise, I think I'll hand over to Vincent, right? Oh, sorry. I think there's another question.
Yeah. Thank you. At Gaia-X, we will be very interested to have this presented yesterday, that we plan to have our own clearinghouse, maybe with our own ecosystem-specific rules. And what will be the process then to push later on our engine to the meta registry? Is it just that we get in touch with you and okay, there won't be any like something we need to register or something like this?
Yeah, the further development of the meta registry and the trust profile will only be developed in close coordination with any ecosystem. So if we have one already, we have then you as a second one, and together we will find the first scalable way how to do that right now. quick and fast. We don't want to produce the perfect solution, but a workable solution which supports the ecosystems right now. So just contact me.
Okay, we are not ready yet, but it was
but when you are ready, just contact me. Either we put it in a working group or in a sprint or something like that. But we totally depend, honestly, on your input, on ecosystem input, because I do not want to waste time in theoretical trust frameworks. I have written too much. There is I've provided a white paper for the meta registry, but theoretically everything works, practically nothing works, and nothing is adopted, so please just contact me when you are ready.
Okay, and we will have a presentation on the clearinghouse, or can we ask already question on the clearinghouse?
We won't have a dedicated clearinghouse thing, but in the general session that would be a good point.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's before the lunch or something like that. And sorry.
This one might be tricky. I'm seeing the core of Danube, and I'm seeing the nice Gaia-X specification. You know, the architecture, the ICAM, and the output from the PRC. And of course, there is also the data exchange that I do not see here. Yet it's understandable because there is not a lot of rules from the PRC dealing with data exchange, but there's going to be. So how would it be managed? Would it be at the core of Danube, or would it be as extension? Extension? Okay.
Yeah, the data exchange services working group compliance rules and implementation would just be a 100% vanilla Gaia-X extension, like kind of Loa. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was one of your previous presentations, Christoph, but it was a possibility to have like a kind of a, I think, GUI extension as well as in this part, or this kind of possibility, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yes, I have another question, very simple, about this schema and all the other one. So if I understand it well, you have many inputs into the compliance component, but you didn't explain what would be the output.
Yeah, the output is always a verifiable credential certifying that you comply to a certain rule set. In the case of Gaia-X compliance, you get a label credential, which is a VC. You know the type field in VC, and then you have label credential, assigning or identifying that this is a label credential, and you have in the format of the verifiable credential, you have the parameters for the compliance document referring to the compliance engine compliance document. And if you have an extension, you would have to develop your own ontology for your own compliance credential, and the core engine would simply issue them to the requester.
If I want to be conformant to something, I understood that I can bring many information from many VCs in the input, but in the output somewhere in the code, you will need to have some kind of a mapping. So if I come with the SCSN stuff, maybe inside I have all the requirements to be Gaia-X conformant, maybe. And maybe I'm missing one attribute. How do I get the Gaia-X conformant one if I'm just missing one attribute?
Yeah, when you post a request, this is a request reply pattern. The service provider or whoever wants to get compliance certified needs to specify which credential does he want to get out of the compliance thing. So if you specify you want to get whatever you put into the engine, if you want to get a label credential, then we will check, the compliance engine will check and say, oh, criteria P 6.1.2 on water usage efficiency is missing. If you do the same, submit the same set of credentials to SCSN and they don't care about criteria P1 or whatever that's called, then they say everything is okay and you get the VC back. It's up to the compliance engine.
So somewhere in the architecture you have some kind of a mapping of, yeah. Yeah, okay.
So yeah, just to add quickly here, it will be really handled by the extension. And if we take as an extension the example of Loire, it will be just the Gaia-X label credential from the ontology. And of course, other extensions are free to use it, the same one. So the same object really that is defined on the ontology.
I mean, I understand that if I have the Gaia-X attributes, I can create my own label using the Gaia-X attributes and other ones, and in the output I will get my own one. But if in the other way around, I'm creating a credential with many attributes inside, and I want to have my own credential and attributes label and so on, but also to get the Gaia-X compliance VC. So I will not code myself the fact that I will request the Gaia-X compliance part to issue a Gaia-X conformant.
So that will be part of the requests. Here, actually, when the user does the request, you have to like choose which compliance you are aiming like to targeting for. So, for example, if you want to be at the same time like Loire compliant and IMX, for example. So it really depends also on the requests. So, for example, like on the request, you want to be just standard, like getting Loire standard compliance, then you will just get either the response, the correct response for that, or the errors, of course, for that. And if you want to get, like, for example, standard compliance plus IMX, then in this case, we'd get both, or the errors if you're missing anything.
Yeah, okay. Maybe we'll discuss later.
Yeah, of course.